and welcome to episode 68 of the Life in General podcast. My name is Nick.
I'm Ian.
I'm joined by my guest, Ian.
That was a ghostly, disembodied voice of Ian.
Ian's no longer a co-host because he doesn't come with notes, so now he's just a guest.
Hey, our last episode, I had more notes than you, so shut the fuck up.
My permanent guest.
Like I said, I had more notes than you last episode, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Swallow whatever's in your mouth. You're clicking on the microphone.
I'm chewing on a mint.
You're chewing loudly.
Did you hear that?
What episode? Hold on. So what episode was there? We had one not too long ago. It was like you're sucking and clanking on something.
No, I was
fucking episode.
What was it?
Oh no, you're eating gummies.
I was
That's what
eating
it is.
the
It's
gummies,
like you wrestling through your
It was
stuff
like,
the whole time.
Yeah.
That was bad. But
well, it just goes to show that I'm a professional, and I take it very seriously.
oh, is that what it is? Wow.
Right. But anywho, we got a show, I think.
Do you? Do you think?
I do. I suspect.
So what's been going on, Ian?
Let's see. I'm working a lot. I had a migraine.
You always have something. Look, people. He's either sick, or he's got some kind of headache, or his vag is swollen up, and
I don't get vaginal swelling. Anal swelling from time to time.
Oh,
that's
now
true.
The truth comes out.
That's not true. No, my vag doesn't swell.
My God. So anyway,
my penis does from time to time. Not as much as it used to.
Okay, now I got to cut all this shit out now. What the fuck is going
whatever.
on? I don't know where the show is like officially falling off the rails.
Doesn't it usually?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, anyway, we do have a real topic that's not about genitals.
Well, I mean, it has. Well, I guess not, but genitals make what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, arguably, I guess, to a degree.
So I've noticed something, and it's probably been over the last decade that I've really noticed it. And it's just like this slow move where children and teens have kind of given up their interest of independence.
Yes.
And I guess, I know we have mutual people that we know. I wouldn't call them friends, but we know people mutually.
Yes.
That are in their 20s.
Even late 20s in some cases.
And have zero will to at least have a driver's license, which I would think is like the basic, like the beginning of your independence.
It is. When we were kids and when our parents were kids, getting your driver's license at 16 was like the ultimate goal up until that point. I mean, that really is the defining moment of, okay, now we're going to be able to start, like you said, being independent, moving on, doing our own things, separated from our parents.
Yeah. But I wonder where some of that comes from.
I think the vast majority of it comes from how they're raised, being raised very sheltered.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going to get at is it that kids today, and first off, I don't want this episode to come off sounding like we're a couple of old people sitting on the front porch bitching about kids today.
Right.
Because that's not what I want to do.
We're going to try not to be ourselves.
pretty much. But I wonder if it's have they kind of given up that independence, or has it been taken from them by overbearing parents?
I think it's available to them if they wanted it, but I think it's the sheltering and the coddling that occurs. It comes to a point where there's no reason to be independent because they can do whatever they want within the confines of their home unit. Where when we were kids, we had rules, we had guidelines, a way to kind of get away from that to kind of define our own personal values and stuff. It was all about that. Now they can kind of have some of that, but not have to do anything to earn it, whereas we had to earn it. On
a quick side note, for all you people listening at home, I'm sitting here watching the the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball game. And I don't know if you saw did you see the screenshot of the sky? There's like a storm rolling into the stadium.
Yeah, I saw it.
It looked really cool. But anyway, back to our topic. I got sidetracked by the shiny object to the left.
Right. I mean, it's just like I said. I don't think it's necessarily been taken away from them. I think it's available to them if they want it.
I just don't think
they want it anymore.
And I don't want to sound like me tooting my own horn or whatever, but I think Mandy and I have made a conscious effort to try to raise our children more so in the way that we were raised.
Right.
And I think it kind of, I don't expect my children to have that disinterest. But you never know. I guess there's still time for them to lose it. But I mean, I think over the last 40 years, you've seen an advancement in enjoyments of freedom, through everything in life, to the point where, let me rephrase that. So we've seen this advancement in life overall for 40 years, but there's been this decline, a dramatic decline, I think, in the enjoyment of independence and self-determination in youth.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And like I said, I think it still comes from that coddling and that sheltering that occurs from their parents.
Well, look at.
But there's also the internet plays a part too, because the internet allows them to exercise independence in a bubble.
Yeah,
where there's no consequences necessarily to anything they do. So couple that with the idea that their home life is too comfortable. Well, because I think there's, to a degree, as children grow up, they start developing their own ideas, their own ways of looking at things. And for us, as when we were that age, our views and our ideas didn't necessarily blend with our parents. So there was a disconnect in terms of how we were allowed and able to be ourselves under the roof of our parents.
Yeah.
So the only way to be ourselves and to get that just natural progression of independence, we needed our license. We needed to be out of the house, away from our parents. And I don't know if it's because just the parents now are younger and wanted to or intentionally create an environment where children can have that independence under the same roof, where it's safe and easy.
Well, I've got to. Well, finish up your comment.
But like I said, I mean, now couple that with, like I said, the internet and the lack of responsibility, but having the independence and being able to express those independent ideas and thoughts out there in the world from the comfort of your own home. It maybe that has a lot to do with it. I don't know.
I kind of lean towards the idea of it. To me, I think it comes from two main things. One is the fear or the stranger danger that we've instilled in children today, and partially rightfully so. But has it created this unconscious fear to be away from their parents?
Perhaps, but you'd have to look at the statistics. Statistically speaking, we as children were less safe than children are today. That's
actually the complete opposite. Children, when we were younger, kidnappings were much more prevalent than they are today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When we were younger, it was more dangerous. For us.
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were saying the complete opposite.
No, I was saying it was more dangerous for us as children than it is now for children. So that's an illusion for them now.
Yeah. Because if you look at the numbers, if you look at the numbers, and these numbers are from the U.S. government, I know I don't remember the exact source, but they were all from whatever department inside the government. It might have been, I think it was from the FBI. But on average, there's about 200 children that are abducted in the U.S. each year by strangers. The rest of the abductions are all from either parents or family members.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And of those 200 children, 90% of the children that are abducted by strangers make it home safely.
That's a good number. I mean,
so of those 200 children, now granted, you're still talking about 10%. So 20 of those children never come home.
Right.
So, I mean, statistically speaking, you're much more likely to get abducted when we were younger
And not come home.
And when I was younger, we were able to do, we'd go on long bike rides either by ourselves or I remember when I was younger, when I was probably 11. Yeah, probably 11 or 12. Me and my brother and I, we would go we would ride back to our old neighborhood, which was probably five miles or more.
Yeah. And it's not in
it would be we literally leave in the morning on our bikes and not come home till 6-7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And that was common.
Yeah, absolutely. For me too. I didn't go that far. Obviously, I didn't have to, but
so is a lot of it fear based? Our parents instilling this fear of other people, non-family members, into children, and are they also instilling a fear of just being injured? Not. They don't let. I remember when I was younger, when I was 12, 13 years old, I cooked meals. I did all sorts of things. Kids, they don't let kids do things like that. We had shop class in middle school.
Right.
We used power tools. You and I, we'd go play in the woods and play with fire and burn things. And,
Yeah.
We'd walk miles from home. And I remember, I don't think you were ever there, but it was me, my brother, and some other friends in our neighborhood. We would walk all the way down the road and go to the convenience stores and walk.
Oh yeah,
the
I used
opposite
to do it
way,
because that's where I used to get my cigarettes from.
and then we'd walk.
Kid.
We'd walk the train tracks back home, and I just don't think kids today. I don't think parents today allow children to have
that kind of freedom.
Yeah, that kind of freedom.
So from that perspective, it's not necessarily that that's where the unwillingness of the independence goes away, like the where it's you said it was taken away from them over time, almost like what is that Munchausen syndrome or whatever?
That's where parents intentionally make their children sick for.
Okay, that's not where a captor becomes more comfortable being captive. Was kind of whatever that syndrome
that's
is.
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm, okay.
Yep.
So is that what you're thinking? It's like a mild version of Stockholm.
Possibly. But the other thing I think a lot of it goes into is just so when we were younger and generations before us, parents had more time. They had more time that they would spend with their children. They'd have more time for family life. And has it gotten to the point now where parents' time is so restricted that everything in a child's life seems scheduled? There's not enough time in the day to get all this done. So, we you get home from school at 3:30. You've got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. So we can be off to soccer practice. We can go off to choir practice. We can go do this. Go do that. We only have a couple hours each day to get all this stuff done. So their lives are basically scripted from morning to night.
I would say that that's a part of it, but that's voluntary, though. I mean, it's important that children have extracurricular activities, but being loaded up that much, that's a choice.
And it is. And it's a choice that Mandy and I have made. I mean, our kids are always in something.
Right.
But you're right. It is how much of that is detrimental and played into the lack of interest in independence.
I don't know, because it's difficult to say, because in some of the cases, I don't want to go too far into where we work, but I've seen situations where even young men in their mid to late 20s come in with their parents.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes no fucking sense to me. And when you ask them questions, their parents answer for them.
Yes.
And they don't seem to be bothered by that. And that's different than just even kind of what we started out talking about. That's a reliance that shouldn't even exist.
No.
It's a parental reliance. And where that comes from, I think, personally, this is just a personal opinion, but from that sheltering and maybe to some degree the scheduling and the structure that comes from that, but I almost think that the parents have to a great degree done so much for their children that the children have never learned how to be independent.
They've stolen their voice.
Yeah, and it's easy. I mean, hell, there's a part of me that would love that. Would love to not have to worry about adult shit ever.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, and you see it with that. And I mean, I even have an extreme case. I'm not going to say any names, but I know a man who's older than me. He's like 44 years old. Has never really had a job. Lives in his mother's house.
Really?
She buys his groceries.
He's not a listener of our show, is he?
No.
Okay.
No. And anyone who knows him isn't going to be upset about anything I say, I don't think, because I'm not going to say any names. And
his name is Ian.
No, I work. I love my independence. I mean, like I said, there's a part of me that'd love to have everything taken care of for me, but fuck that. What I lose is far greater than what I gain on that. And I mean, he has no interest in working or doing anything. He's okay with the fact that he has nothing other than what his mother provides for him. She buys his cigarettes, she buys his food, and he just lives in the house. She doesn't even live there with him. She drops all this shit off to him.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
But it's her house. She actually has another house that she pays for.
That's insane.
And it's an extreme case, but what happens I think this is something we should approach or at least consider. What happens to these children, to these young adults, and who will eventually be older adults when the parents are gone and aren't there to shelter them anymore? I mean, that's going to be a very, very damaging thing to happen.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a really shock to their system.
Because it is for a big chunk of the generation. Because they're going to be in their 50s and they're going to have to grow up like that. Exactly. Or they're going to end up homeless. This guy is going to end up homeless. He's going to end up in jail, which is fine. He's been in jail a bunch of times. He's
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, because he doesn't do anything except when he does go out, he gets in trouble. Well, and I think there's mental illness involved, but it hasn't been diagnosed, so maybe. I don't know.
Well, I guess and that would explain some of it. But.
It would explain some of it, but to me, it seems like it would be much easier and much more beneficial for a mother, even at this point, who's gone this far, to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore because I'm not doing anyone any favors.
How much of it is just out of convenience? Like, as a parent, and I know you can't, it's hard for you to speak as a parent, and you're not one, but how much...
It doesn't mean anything, but
it does. But how much do you think the lack of it just being easier to do it that way? You know, why do I have to sit here and teach my kids to have a voice, per se, when I can just do it for them and just be done with it?
Well, that's bad parenting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I
don't understand what not being a parent has anything to do with that.
Because, well, no, not with that necessarily, but there are some other things that you can't you don't really know what goes into it until you're there.
It's called empathy. I think everyone who has empathy can understand all the hardships and downfalls of just about anything. But anyway, go ahead.
It goes far beyond empathy. It really does.
Oh, whatever. I honestly think that's just what parents tell themselves to make themselves feel better.
But it's not.
It is. I really do. I think it is.
No. How is that?
That's like saying, okay, so basically what you could be saying is, well, you've never had a child, so you don't understand what it's like to not murder a child.
Okay, well, I will tell you this.
I know what it's like to have a kid in terms of what...
It's real easy. Just go and talk to people that have kids, and they'll tell you the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's not. It's
you don't know what goes into raising children until you're there, in the moment, and it's really easy.
Well, why don't you? Since you've been in the moment 3 times, why don't you tell me a specific situation that I would not understand as a non-parent?
It's hard to explain, Ian.
If you can't explain it, then you can't say. You cannot definitively say.
But I can because I was there. I was someone that didn't have children. And then I had children, so I can tell you I've been on both sides.
I will agree with you
on
the sense that I might not understand how difficult some specific situations
it makes
are. It doesn't mean that I don't understand.
Much easier for someone who has never had to raise children to make assessments on other people.
I can make assessments based on generalizations. Because, and quite honestly, you raising children is different than other people raising children.
Oh, yeah. No two people raising children are the same.
So, by that standard, nobody truly understands exactly what it's like to raise children. You know what it's like to raise your children.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I find it insulting and diminishing.
You can, but unfortunately, it's true. For it's.
I think it's.
And like I said before,
I personally think
go
it's
ask anyone that's had children.
That's because they all want to make themselves feel better about
it's not.
anything that it is.
It's not at all.
You're basically saying that I can't understand anything because I haven't done that. There's a lot of shit that in the world and the existence that we don't ever do, but we can have a rudimentary understanding of.
You can have an understanding. You can have a rudimentary understanding of raising children, but you do not know what goes into the day and night care of somebody until you're there, and you do it.
If you say that, you have to back that up with a distinctive, specific thing.
If I sat here and think about it, yeah, I probably could.
Well, please come up with it because you said it before, and it's the most insulting thing anyone could ever say to me.
Well, I'm sorry you're such a little snowflake.
It's not about being a snowflake.
It is.
You're basically saying that I'm incapable
of
understanding your plight.
What I'm saying is if you're not there and haven't gone through it, you don't know what it's like to go through it. It's as simple as that.
I can tell you this. Do I understand what it's like to go through being a parent of a child who's died? You're absolutely right. I could never understand that. Do I know what it's like to go through being a parent of a child who has special needs? No, I can never say that. But general parenting, it's pretty. It's as important as it is, and it's not easy. I can't. There's no way I could ever say it was an easy thing. But general parenting has been going on for billions of years.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good understanding of it. I've never seen evolution, but I have a pretty good understanding of evolution.
You think you do? Is all I'm saying.
Well,
but anyway, back to the topic.
But see that it implies that you're better than me.
No, it's not. That's how you would. I'm sorry that you feel that way, Ian.
Well,
but that's not what anyone's trying to say.
When people generally say that, they're saying it in a derogatory way.
No, they're not.
Yeah. They're telling me to basically shut up because I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, what it's saying is, on a lot of instances, you're just ignorant on what actually goes through a day-to-day operation, and that's all it is.
You wake your children up, you feed them, you get them off to school.
And ignorance is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be, but in most instances, it's not. Ignorance is just the fact that you don't know or have the understanding of something.
Well, like I said,
being stupid and being ignorant are two very different things.
A specific definition
but
of
that's not what we're talking about here.
No, but
it does, and I'm not going to take it there either.
Okay, but it does now beg the question: what do I even have to offer this conversation then?
What do you have to offer any conversation, Ian?
My personal understanding of things based on opinion and the fact that I have
and that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, to that extent, then why did you even bring it up?
That's
what I mean. By bringing that up, it diminishes anything that I have to say.
Well, no, it doesn't.
Well,
it doesn't. What I'm saying is that it's hard to make assessments on other people.
That's true of anything.
And that's why I'm trying to steer away from
That's true of anything, not just parenting.
And that's why I'm trying to steer away from the ins and outs of what role parenting has, or I'm trying to say, is there something other than that plays into this?
Other than parenting?
Yes.
Well, that's what I was pointing out. I'm sure technology has a huge part to play in it.
Okay.
Because it does offer that level of independence, that emotional independence, that makes up for the fact that they may not have a physical or social independence.
Yeah.
And because their home life is coddled and sheltered, and the parents, for whatever reason, do not encourage growth of an emotional level because they take care of everything for them, and there's never any need for them to have to worry about anything. Couple that with the technology, and that's what, in my opinion, that's what you get 27-year-old men who have to have their parents with them at the doctors.
I guess the other thing I look at is I remember my dad telling me stories when he was younger. I want to say he couldn't have been, it was obviously before he drove. So early teens.
Okay.
He would take the bus down to Tiger Stadium.
Right.
And go to Tigers games.
And this is where did you grow up, in Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's a bit of a drive. That's a 25-minute drive on the bus.
On bus, yeah, probably. But it's things like that. Now, granted, I guess when we were growing up, it probably wasn't a whole lot different. Obviously, I don't think we were doing things like that. But like I said before, taking 5-6 hour bike rides and things like that, I guess is probably not a whole lot different than that. And
no, but when you're on a bus, when you're on a bike, you're independent in terms of where you go. Whereas when you're on a bus, you're surrounded by complete strangers and you're stuck in a confined area.
Yeah, but it's still
that's what I was referring to.
It's still the independence of being away from your family.
Right.
You're going to do your own thing.
Right.
And I guess I probably don't see a whole lot of that happens now. And that's one thing that Mandy and I guess I can't really speak for Mandy, but I'm assuming it's probably the same thing. Why we like where we live, because our kids are kind of able to do that.
Right.
And my kids ride their bikes into town with their friends, and they go to the pizza place, and they'll go to the ice cream shop and things like that, and they kind of do their own thing.
Well, you've got a smaller area,
I mean,
community.
If my kids if we lived in Detroit or
right.
more some place that's more heavily populated, even Ipsy, I probably wouldn't let my kids do that there. Which we grew up in Ipsy, and I did it there. So
we kind of grew up in the more rural areas of Ipsy, whereas downtown Ipsy is a very different thing than where we grew up.
Yeah, we grew up in Ypsilanti Township, right. So there is a difference. But I mean, it's just, and that's why I kind of feel like a lot of it, I think, is kind of fear-based that's instilled in children. And coupled with because I guess technology does play probably a really big part in it, because if you think of kids today, they're not, and this is the other thing, I guess if parents are working, they're not at home to make sure the kids go out to the park and play. It's easier for little Johnny to be in his bedroom and play
video games.
And play, I was thinking Roblox is a game my kids play with their other friends, but they can play with their friends just on an online setting.
Well, it's video games, though.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, though. That's where I was getting at with the technology. There's a level of independence that exists in the digital world that we didn't have. But I think if there was more balance, that wouldn't necessarily by itself create the situation we're discussing.
Yeah.
But that coupled with a lot of parents who do everything for their children. There's never a time when their children have to fend for themselves.
Yeah. And I've seen it too. I've seen people.
I have
in their
a friend
20s
who did not know how to do laundry in her 20s.
Yeah.
Because her mother did her laundry for her all the time.
When I turned 13, and that's why I said I didn't want to turn into like the grumpy old people yelling at the kids today, but when I turned 13, it was like, all right, well, you're 13 now, you can do your own laundry.
Right. And as much as we make it sound like we're complaining about that, because I was about 13 too, 12 or 13 when that happened as well. As much as it makes it sound like we're complaining about that, I'm glad that happened. Yeah. Because I wouldn't want to be in my 20s and have to learn how to do my fucking laundry.
No.
It
just, I guess it kind of all goes back to the whole driving thing. It kind of boggles my mind that as a, 15, 16-year-old, you don't want to get out and at least get behind the wheel. And
well, I would say there is one outside element to that could answer some of it. When we turned 15, we could sign up for driver's ed through our school, and it was free.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not.
Yeah,
everything costs a fortune. It's hundreds of dollars to get your driver's license. So I guess we could point out that plays into a little bit, but I think that should only delay it to maybe 18.
Yeah,
which I know a lot of kids who do get their license at 18, but because it's cheaper than when you're 15, 16.
Yeah.
So when we were kids, that was something that it was easier for us a little bit, because that was the key. As soon as you had to be 15 in so many months to sign up for driver's ed, or 15 within a certain period to sign up for that particular year's driver's ed. Yeah, I remember signing up, riding my bike to school, which was the distance. It wasn't a short trip. To take driver's ed in the summertime, and it was 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it was super simple. And then all we did was drive with our parents for a little while with our permit.
And then you're done.
And then you get your license. Now it's a lot more elaborate.
It is,
and again, a lot more expensive too, and which I'm sure you're about to find out.
Yeah, my oldest will be taking driver's ed, I think, this summer or fall.
Right.
But it just, and I don't want to bash on people that don't like driving. There's, from the people I have talked to about this, that have a fear of driving. It seems more like anxiety based.
Where's that anxiety coming from? Because it didn't exist when we were kids.
No,
that's
didn't.
what I mean. Yes, there's probably a medical or a psychological reason for it, but where did that stem from?
Yeah.
It had to stem from somewhere. And that's what I was kind of talking about, the coddling. Why are children as young as 10 being put on anti-anxiety medication, which is it happens all the time? What do 10-year-olds have to be anxious about?
Everything, I guess,
and nothing. Because that's everything and nothing.
Yeah, because that's what I get when I've talked to people that have anxiety issues. It's everything. Everything in their life gives them anxiety,
and it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
So where does that's? I guess that could be the key right there. Let's figure that out first.
Is it part of some kind of psychological evolution or de-evolution?
Well, evolution isn't always progressive.
That's why.
So I guess it could be, but I can't see it being a beneficial evolution.
No, I wouldn't think so. Unless it's like a self-preservation kind of thing. But
yeah, but it's not really preserving anything. If anything, it could potentially hurt future generations.
Possibly. But
most likely.
But it seems like something that's really happened, I would say, within the last 15 to 20 years. I've seen a lot more. And
yeah, because we'll say anywhere from the age group of 20 to 31.
I was even going younger than that. I mean, I've seen.
Well, as far as the anxiety thing goes, yeah, like I said, I know of children as young as 10 who are in anti-anxiety medicine. But what I'm saying is, as far as looking at it through the independent and adult side of it, 20 to 31-year-olds now are the ones who are in that realm. Mm-hmm. Maybe even we'll say 33. But anyone older than 33 typically isn't going to be
in that
range. And we don't know anything about the group below it other than, like I said, there are 10-year-olds who are on fucking anti-anxiety medicine, and I don't understand that.
Well, and like I said before, it's while we think that, there is nothing in your life that should give you anxiety.
Right.
Unfortunately, for the people that are suffering with it, everything gives them anxiety.
But again, that's what I don't understand where that comes from, because yes, if you're a 10-year-old and you've been abused and molested your whole life, I can see there being an issue. I can see there being a psychological need or defect there.
Yeah.
As a result of of trauma and things like that. But children without that, who grow up just the same as everyone else, but have that level of anxiety. And
I think that's why ultimately they're put on medication.
Right. And you could argue that probably maybe a lot of them are misdiagnosed too.
Possibly.
I mean, that's true with ADHD and everything else. There's a lot of misdiagnosis out there. Overdiagnosis, underdiagnosis.
And I'd be willing to bet there's probably a lot of kids that we went to school with that probably suffer the same way. It just wasn't medically acceptable.
Well,
or
true. I can't argue with that.
There's probably more of a stigma.
I think
those kids probably got into more trouble, had more issues in life.
When we were kids, it was just kind of the beginning of where this ADD, it was just ADD back then, started. There were kids in our classrooms that were on medication. Mm-hmm. Wasn't anywhere near what it is now.
No.
But the stigma was maybe starting to go away then, and it was at least starting to be recognized. But I would say it was probably underdiagnosed then. Whereas now it might be overdiagnosed.
And I would say, and this would have been a perfect show to have my wife on, because she could probably speak to a lot of this, being someone that's worked with special needs children for 20 years, is looking back on it now. Looking back when I was in elementary school and middle school, I can look at kids, and at the time I just thought they were assholes or they were just bad children, did bad things. And looking back at it now, it's like, well, yeah, they probably had issues that
possibly
they had some kind of undiagnosed thing, and unfortunately at the time there wasn't any kind of treatment for it. And I know people that are dead, that are in prison. A lot of those kids that had issues are no longer in functional society, and it's unfortunate because had they been born 20 years later, their lives
Might have been better.
might have been drastically different.
Now, I would also go, I agree with that 100%, but I also don't want to take away from the fact that there is parental responsibility there too.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can see certain situations where, even if those cases were true, where there was a lack of diagnosis of an issue, but you can see similarities in how that child was raised to how another child was raised, and how the outcome, regardless of the medical side of it, was the same.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I'm getting at now too, because you can see similarities in how these children are raised. Relative to, I mean, I guess we can only look at it through the spectrum of how we were raised, how our parents were raised.
Yeah.
To
personal experience.
As a judgment to what these other parents might be doing wrong. But when you see children who at least outwardly suffer no consequences for their actions, and then misbehave in public, is that ADHD, or is that just because there's no consequences, they do whatever the fuck they want?
Yeah.
And I think that plays a big part of it too.
I'm sure it does.
So, I mean,
but the other thing is, when I'm out in public and I see people pushing their strollers around, and I won't say where I saw this at, but I witnessed it firsthand. Sorry, there was a child young enough to still be in a car carrier, in a stroller. They had an iPad strapped
to the top of it. Yeah, you mentioned it on the show before, I think.
And my first thought is, it's just like, now granted, I don't know what was going on, what they've gone through, the situations in that parent's life that they've dealt with, but at some level you've got to say, how detrimental, even though this is going to pacify my child for the period of time that I'm at this specific place, what kind of detrimental damage could this potentially do to my child?
Right.
And it's
the same argument was made when we were kids about television.
And that's kind of why I'm trying not to. And my wife does not like children having electronics. She has a big issue with it.
I agree more with her on that.
I do agree with her on part of it, but I also kind of look at it like you said. When we were growing up, people said the same thing about television, and we kind of all grew up generally okay.
The difference is, and to kind of side with Mandy to a degree, to a large degree, is when we were kids, the television was isolated. It was positioned. Generally, we didn't. I mean, as we got older, we had TVs in our rooms, but the only TV available was the one in the living room and the main family TV. There was one TV, primarily.
I had a TV in my bedroom from the time I was young, but
I didn't get a TV in my room until I was in my teens. Yeah. So, but regardless, actually, I mean, we had a kids area in the basement.
Yeah,
and there was a TV down there. So, I mean, I had control over that, I guess, to some degree. But as far as even with that, the TV didn't go outside with us.
Yeah,
it didn't travel with us. When we left the house, there were differences in terms of what had to. I mean, we couldn't strap a TV to our strollers.
Yeah,
there was a need to have to pacify us. But the argument then, for as I was pointing out for Mandy, Mandy's side and mine as well, because I agree that I think technology plays too big of a role in child's lives. Not necessarily your children, but just in general.
Well, and one of my children.
Yeah, well, perhaps, but even. That being said, the problem is because you can take it everywhere, and it can be used in such a simple way to keep children pacified. There becomes no need to. There's no learning moments.
Yeah.
There's no moment where a child misbehaves in public and gets their ass beat because the kid's just focused on the one little thing. Granted, you could say that, well, that's good. They're not getting in trouble.
But it's not.
But they're not learning anything.
Because you grow as an individual from your mistakes.
Exactly. That's my point. They're not learning how to deal with issues, scenarios where there's consequences to anything. So as they get older and you start realizing in your teens and maybe even your early 20s, when you start looking out in the world and saying, the world is full of consequences. I walk out my door as an adult, I'm going to be facing a consequence based on any choice I make from the moment I walk out my door to the time I walk back in. So they don't want to walk out the door because they've never had to deal with consequences before. They've never had learning experiences before. That's where the fear and anxiety might come from. Well, but it also plays into the parenting side of it because they've never been forced to deal with.
Going back to the TV issue and the electronic issue, when we were younger, yes, we watched TV. TV was part of our daily lives. Mm-hmm. You also didn't have 24-hour kids networks that were readily available.
But we were starting to get into the era where we had VCRs, where we had choice.
Yeah, for the most part, though, when you went home after school, there were cartoons or kids programs on for
till about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and then after that was it until the next morning.
Right.
So there wasn't the ability, to sit and watch Cartoon Network until 10, 11 o'clock at night, right. or watch kids shows on Netflix or Hulu.
Well, no, I mean there was
like that.
There's a reason why
the availability is much larger now than what it was.
True,
when we were
kids. That might be the argument that's why we as children preferred being outside with our friends.
Maybe
because there was more choices of activity.
But I would also say that Jack, my oldest, he plays video games all the time. He's on the computer,
but there's a balance for him.
But yeah, he was, yesterday it's 45 degrees outside and he's out fishing all day long.
Right, I saw the picture.
So there's, but I think that also necessarily doesn't really fall. Part of that doesn't necessarily fall on the shoulders of the parents. I think part of that falls on the child and the friends that they associate themselves with. If you befriend,
but that's parenting too.
But what I'm saying is, but it's not. I don't really have much of a role in the kids my friends befriend in school. If you grow close to friends at school, right, and they're into X, Y, and Z, generally you're going to be into X, Y, and Z also because that's what they do.
Right.
It's
but it does. What I meant by that was there, as difficult as it is, because I would understand that it's probably pretty difficult to force your children to not hang out with certain elements, but
especially in a school setting.
In a school setting, right? But it's still important that a parent understands who their children are hanging around with and what kind of influence that is.
I think a lot of that goes back to just being involved in your children's lives,
right?
It's like. My wife and I, Minty and I, we're not big into fishing. Granted, I grew up fishing, so I was around fishing a lot. But I don't know if I've ever gone fishing with my children. But some of Jack's friends in school, they're big fishers.
Right.
So that's what they do on the weekends. He goes over their house and they go fishing.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying though. It's that those kind of instances don't really have an impact from mine and Mandy's parenting.
Right. Right.
It's just the people you associate yourself with.
No, that's fair.
And you're right. To the role parenting plays into that is kind of teaching your children prior to what kind of people that they should associate themselves with. And knowing that if they associate themselves with the wrong people, even if they're not doing wrong, they're going to be associated with the wrong stuff.
And I was really more talking about the more negative influences that can be found in school settings and things like that. But the positive side of it is more of what you were talking about. I was just, just to be clear there.
Yeah.
There's positive and negative on both ends.
Of both sides.
But ultimately, everything we've talked about, there's medical things, there's social things that we can point to and say that these are culprits.
Or potentially
culprits. But I never want to diminish the role that parents should be playing in their children's lives.
Oh, yeah.
And as difficult as it is, there are right and wrong ways to parent.
And I would say that
they're not always universal,
and that's
but
where you kind of get into a gray area because there is no such thing as a perfect parent.
No, absolutely not.
On a daily basis, you are going to make the wrong decisions.
Of course, that's true of everything. That's true of
day.
everything in life.
So, and that's why it's really kind of hard to, and that's why I say I kind of try to stay away from judging other parents' parental styles unless it's an egregious instance.
I think there are things that are obviously bad parenting, and there are things that are obviously good parenting. But there's no such thing as perfect parenting.
No, but I think there's a lot of instances where you can look at things that some parents do, and it's easy from the outside to say, well, they shouldn't do this or that or the other thing. But it's much different to be in the situation, and you're just trying to get through the moment, and then after the fact, you look back on it and say, well, yeah, that was stupid. I shouldn't have fucking done that.
Right. No, I'm not saying that's what, but there are, like I said, there are good parenting things and there are bad parenting things. But as I said, there's no such thing as perfect parenting.
No, there's universally good things.
And there's a lot of in between the good and the bad. A lot of things that occur within that realm in the middle. That's where the gray area lies. Yeah. That's all I was saying.
But the other thing is, I know people that have been fully invested in their children's lives and development and understand childhood development and understand all this, and from the outside do what I would think would be the socially accepted normal kind of things, that ultimately still have children that have these I won't say anti-independence, but lack of interest in independence.
Well, I guess that's where those other elements fall into place. That's where the societal elements fall into place. That's where the technological elements fall into place. And that's where the medical things fall into place. Because it's not just all one thing. It's, there's a spectrum. All I was saying was I don't want to. A lot of times I feel that, take education, and this is something, again, Mandy really should be here to talk about. But
I tried to get her on the show.
Take education. When we look at it on a societal level, when there's a problem, where does the blame usually go? To the teachers.
It should.
It never goes to the parents.
No.
And I don't want this to be also a situation where you say, "Oh, it's all this, but never this," or just ignoring the parental side of it.
It's always a combination of multiple things.
Right.
How about that?
The parental side of it, I would say, has to be a big part of it, and I never want to take away that there is parental responsibility here. Mm-hmm. But as you're pointing out, there's also situations where no matter what a parent does, these things still happen.
Yeah.
But it should always, for the most part, fall to parental responsibility first. Not ultimately, but first. Then you move from there. That's all I was pointing out. I don't want it.
But also kind of going towards that. But I've had conversations with Mandy before where she's talked about having. She taught. For a short period of time, she did some pre-student teaching, and I won't say where, but
I remember.
But she talked about the experience she dealt with at that stage or at that school, where she had really great children. Probably maybe some of the best kids she's had in school, but if you ever had to deal with the parents weren't there.
Right.
And I wonder how, because those kids were young that were in school then. So I wonder, where they ended up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And it's never an accurate thing, no matter what you're looking at. You can never say Y will always lead to X, or X always Y to Z here. You know what I mean? There's no clear cut path, because out of all those children, let's say. Best case scenario, they were all raised exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. There's not 100% of them are going to turn out the same way, obviously. But you can see patterns in behavior, patterns in parenting styles. And that's kind of, again, what I was going at to before. There's patterns that can lead you to an estimate, or at least a rough idea of how one person might develop differently than another under different circumstances. It's never 100% accurate. It's not a real science, but in terms of understanding, you can kind of eventually pinpoint certain patterns of parenting, patterns of behavior, and you can come to a conclusion based on good evidence. Not 100% accurate, but good evidence is where these children are going to go.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's also kind of interesting that if you look at statistics from multiple studies, or in just statistics overall, you know, there is a very obvious pattern of children that seek independence later in life. You know, their kids are staying home with their parents. They're living with their parents longer. They're waiting to get married till later in life. Yep. They're waiting to have children till later in life. So maybe that's just...
And actually, millennials are the first generation to choose not to be having children at all.
Yeah.
I mean, to the extent that they are. And they're also, for some reason, this was brought up, I haven't really had a chance to look too into it beyond what was said on Bill Maher, but millennials are having less sex than past generations.
That's unfortunate.
Well, for them. But I wonder if that goes to the same thing we're talking about.
So, but that's what kind of leads me to say: is this just some kind of evolutionary step, just where everything's going?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, we'd either have to see the next level of it to be able to determine that, or an end game for it. And we'll never see that in our lifetime. Because when these evolutionary steps take many, minimum of
not always.
Of several generations.
Not always.
This type of evolution this is just the first step.
Depends on where it goes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, we won't know. We can't see where it's going to go. And what I said earlier about it, you know, not necessarily being a positive evolutionary thing. It's not. It doesn't have to be. It could be negative now and positive later.
Yeah. I don't know. It probably doesn't matter. I mean, a comet's probably going to hit the Earth in probably 20 years and kill us all anyway. But.
Well, a comet could hit the Earth any day now. It's just luckily the vastness of the galaxy is on our side overall.
Yeah.
For that.
I don't know. I'm sure there's some kind of crazy conspiracy out there that we're all going to
I guess
we're all going to die in the next 90 days
If the Earth is flat, it doesn't much matter, does it? Because the universe is small and, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, flat earthers are weird. I did tell you that the flat Earth guy, the one flat Earth guy, kind of recanted the whole.
Yeah, we mentioned that on the last show.
Okay.
Yeah, but I we'll talk about it off air because we've talked a lot about flat earthers on air anyway. But there's a politician. I think he's.
Are you serious?
In office, who's a flat earther? I have to find his name.
Here in the U.S.?
In the U.S., yeah.
No. How is that possible?
I don't know. I'll find his name, though, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, because I'd be kind of interested to see.
No. Or he was a former politician. He was a politician. He was a member of our government at one point, or is now, and he is and has been a flat earther. Or a young earther. He started out as a young earther and then went to flat earth.
That's interesting.
There's actually a lot of young earthers in our government, by the way. Our vice president is one of them.
Yeah, young earthers are stupid. Or I wouldn't say stupid. Young earthers kind of go along the same lines I think flat earthers.
Right.
I'm just trying to Google it real quick. Yeah, I don't see.
He might have been a former politician, but he was in our government or in government.
I wonder what flat earthers think of the whole Space Force thing.
I don't know. I think they're trying to. They probably bunch it up with the whole NASA conspiracy and don't really pay it much mind. Other than that,
I guess I didn't really think of that before. No, Ian, that's a Canadian politician.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's right. It's right here.
All
Canadian politician believes the Earth is flat.
Okay.
And that was just published February of this year. So.
Okay, well, that's got to be the one then. Yeah.
Well, you know, Canadians are kind of crazy anyway, and
crazy nice.
And I can say that because we don't have a whole lot of listeners in Canada. We do have some, but not a whole lot. But
yeah, you can't. No matter what you say about a Canadian, they're always going to be like, "Okie dokie." been nice talking to you.
I'm gonna go shoot a moose.
Well, who doesn't?
Me?
Oh yeah, me neither.
Oh.
I've never shot anything in my life.
No.
I take that back. I shot somebody with a BB gun, an actual person, but it was an accident. I thought it was empty.
I've never shot. Yeah, I've stabbed people, but never shot anything.
I shot a person with.
I
a
never
BB
stabbed
gun.
anyone intentionally.
Right. Yeah, I never shot anybody intentionally, but I have shot somebody with a BB gun.
Your sister?
No.
Oh,
No.
because I guess that'd be kind of justified. But
Yeah, well, I couldn't argue that it was unintentional at that point either. I couldn't say, "Oh, it was an accident," because deep down it would never have been an accident, even if it didn't mean to do it. Like on the surface, subconsciously there would have been intent. So.
I don't know. Yeah, that's about all I got. I kind
Yeah,
of ran out of notes on that one, but
Yeah, it's one of those situations where we
It's
can discuss
interesting.
it and talk about it, but there's no answer
no,
that we're ever going to come up with, because even the people who are way smarter than us aren't going to come up with it.
I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. I'm smart enough to get by in life.
That's about all we are. Man. That's all of us. Even the people who are dumber than us are still smart enough to get by.
Are they?
Mostly.
I mean, Trump did get a lot of votes in 2016.
That's my point.
Huh?
That's my point.
Just enough to get by.
Just enough to get by.
All right, so now that I drug politics in the whole thing. But anyway, that's it.
Well,
that's all I
it
got.
seems like politics and flat earthers always end up in almost every episode, at least in honorable mention.
I don't know. I get a lot of joy out of talking about flat earthers because
It's so
a lot of
bad.
a lot of it kind of defies.
Oh, it defies all logic, just in general, just the whole idea.
Yeah. Some of them. See, I will say that some of them like put on. I won't say it's believable, but a believable argument. Like you can.
It comes from a place where it sounds like it could make sense.
Yes, but then a lot of it's like, look, I set my pop bottle. Look, my bottle isn't rolling on this desk.
Right.
It's not. The earth can't be round.
And
Then
I'm shocked because in all because we've done the shows recently, and I've even done because I watch flat Earth videos all the time because they crack me
he's
up.
a secret flat earther.
No, never. No. But I watch them as a joke, and sometimes they put me to sleep. So it's kind of like my sedative for the night. But I'm finding out that the vast majority of flat earthers are also anti-grav. They don't believe in gravity,
Which is
weird because we can see the evidence of gravity. But and it didn't make much sense. But then what I found out is that why they think that is because the Earth is moving. The flatness of the Earth is moving. Like if you were to turn a plate sideways and move it like across, like horizontally, like the plate's vertical.
so there's just like force that's holding us.
Yeah, it's the force of the planet moving that's forcing us down. I've seen 5 separate videos that use that as a reason for gravity.
That's really
where they don't
interesting.
explain gravity. But the problem with that is
wouldn't it still kind of be
it's
gravity?
still gravity. Yes, it's still gravity. It's because it's motion causing the effect. It's still gravity.
Yeah,
But that's their answer, and it's when you say that you're like, okay, well if you don't understand gravity, how gravity works, you could say, oh, that makes sense. But it doesn't because you don't understand gravity.
The one guy, I don't remember his name, but the one I talked about before when we did the Flat Earth episode, he had several videos that were, like I said before, it was like the way he presented the material. I won't say it made,
he was convincing in his presentation. His evidence was bad.
He sounded like he was convinced himself.
Okay.
Of the information he was
based on
presenting.
that, a lot of them are, but I mean, I think
a lot of them are
trolling.
Almost because I think you look at the numbers that flat Earth videos get, and I think that's like some percentage of those people
are trolling,
have to be putting those videos out just because they can make money off them.
Yeah, maybe
it's like, look, I know these suckers will
eat it up.
Will drop,
Well, I thought about
500,000 views easy.
I thought about doing the same thing, not about flat Earth, but about religion.
Yeah,
seriously. I mean, I could pull it off.
Flat Earth seems to get more.
But what would it be?
I'm not a big YouTube person, but when I've done research on some of our shows, it seems like flat Earth videos get a lot more views than like anything else out there.
Yeah,
as far as like the crazy
second
stuff
to religious or atheist. The religion and non-religion,
no,
they
like,
fight against each other. Though.
Like the one lady, I don't remember what the name of her show was, but it was like Flat Earth and I don't know, I'm a crazy nutbag or something like that. It was like some really strange.
I've seen that one before,
but like every single one of her videos had like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views.
Right.
It's like there's a lot of channels I'll go on, and even like some of the bigger shows, a lot of their shows will be like that, but then they'll have some like dud shows. Like none of hers were. So I don't know if her like channel is on like permanent loop somewhere, but it was like every single episode would have like 800,000 or 900,000 views, like within the first like month that it was out. It was crazy. And it was like a lot of the flat earth channels I looked at, because I went through I really don't want to talk about this.
Right.
But when the I looked on the Flat Earth Convention's website for last year when they had their big convention, and they've got a page on there for all the different speakers over there, and you click on the pictures and it'll take you of course to their YouTube channel.
Right.
Like
that's where all stems
every
from.
single one, and some of the ones like the bigger ones I clicked on, there were like multiple million views per episode.
Right.
And it's like, is there really that much fucking interest in Flat Earth?
Well, you have to assume that a lot of those views are reviews. So like the person who's a flat earther or becomes a flat earther goes back and watches John Doe. They'll go watch his videos over and over again. I
guess.
And if there multiple people doing
but
that.
I was like, but if you look at other like conspiracies, if you look at like Bigfoot videos or we're going to talk about it in a future episode, but we're going to talk about like JFK kind of conspiracies. Right. If you look at like videos like that, those numbers are nowhere near what flat earth stuff gets.
Right. It depends though if you connect.
But I wonder how much, if there's so much flat earth, like you said before, there's so many other like things that go into flat earth, like the hollow earth kind of stuff goes into
or
it.
The non-gravity or the moon stuff.
So I wonder,
it's probably
a collaboration of
I was going to
all
say,
of it.
Because of the nature of that, I would say that they all kind of have a crisscross audience.
But it's interesting. I don't know. I could talk about conspiracy theories for a long time. But anyway, I want to kind of wrap the show up. Anything else that we're in?
No.
Okay. Since you said it like that.
I'm okay.
Any questions or comments, you can email us at lifeandjournalpod@gmail.com. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook. And I can't say go to our website anymore. Our website's still up for like another 2 weeks, I think. But
by the time this episode comes out, it'll only be a week.
Very true.
Yes.
Very, very true. Well, I think it's the beginning of next month when it comes down.
Okay.
But then anyway, then I'll be able to start working on our new website.
Okay. Sounds good.
But that's it.
Thanks for all that info, Nick. Thank you.
Go to hell. All right. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Play my role, let me tell you about it. This shit right here, man, I'm about it. Only real niggas reside around me. Yo, old lady, drop a guard around me. Dip like I know you can, bitch. Show me the ropes like we in the ring. Got you 2 cobras, you wanna hang. Shoulder to shoulder, the niggas basic. You know I won't lie. You know that I ain't for that fuck shit. You niggas alright, but I'm way better and she love it. Know that y'all sick as fuck. Here go this tissue, bruh. We taking the dub, hoping you get you some. This hit like a pick me up. She taking my drugs. Know they see the sign. That's some dollar sign. Know they sick as fuck. Know they sick as fuck. Tell them get well soon. Tell them get well soon. Know you sick as fuck. Get well soon.
Oh shit. Watch out, you the god, Billy. Oh shit. Right now, and I'm smiling in your face, bitch. With a gold smile, you should probably make placement to your eye. Niggas sick as fuck. Standing with niggas who down for that party. Who down for some bitches who showing their bodies. Swear to God, nigga, this Molly got me up and rolling. These bodies of water. Bring that shit in bottles. We mash at the party that hit when we stylin'.